All right, guys, RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. We're back, and today, as you can see, we have one of our guests with us, one of our clients, Joseph Blanco. How are you doing today, Joseph?
I'm all right.
Been better, I imagine, huh?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay. So, Joseph, you got in trouble for PPP fraud, which many of individuals, many Americans are going through the same thing right now. And you actually never were indicted. You found out about the investigation and took the smart road and pled to information, correct?
Yes.
So kind of take us back a little bit, and I know you got sentencing coming up September 7th of this year, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But take us back through a little bit of how all this started, kind of like what your mindset was, because most people we talk to, they weren't out there going, "I'm going to go defraud and run this
Right.
giant scam." It just kind of like happened. So tell us a little bit about your situation on that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors that played in, but I was hard up on money, and my youngest child was born in March of 2020. That same month is when the COVID cases started popping up in South Florida. I'm self-employed, so business started to slow down, and I started reaching out to people that owed me money, like friends or previous associates, and no one was paying me back. Everyone was pretty much struggling. And in May, I was contacted by one of them, and one of the associates that owed me money, and they said, "Hey, do you still have your business?" And I said, "Yeah." Yeah. And they said, "Okay, I can get you a business loan. I know I owe you the money." And I said, "Well, can't you get a business loan and just pay me back what you owe me?" And and at this point I had tried home equity loan. I got denied by Chase for the home equity loan, and I was kind of just desperate. So she says, "Yeah, look, it's this," and I said, "Look, my credit's it's not that good," and she said, "Oh, credit doesn't matter. Fill out the application," and that's what I did. I filled it out. It was a one-page application with basic information of my business and my personal information. I sent it to her, and like a day later, or I think it was like the same day, I was getting like some type of email saying to click something. It was click to activate or something. I forgot. And so I did it, and I started as I saw it, how fast it was getting processed. I mean, I've gotten loans before. I know there's underwriting and stuff, and I immediately was like something. I'm smart enough to know
Right.
better than this. So but I still allowed it to go on, and so the loan gets processed. I didn't even know the amount that was being applied for until the DocuSign came. They send you like a DocuSign link,
Right.
and I clicked it, and I was like, "Holy cow!" So DocuSign, looking at a DocuSign on your phone, I mean, you're just pretty much just clicking. Next page, click. Next page.
And I imagine at this point you're also financially just like destitute. You're trying
I'll tell you the
business,
one thing I
family.
looked at. I looked at the interest. It was 1%, and I said, 1%. I was like, and then so it just became about, can I pay this back? Hey, I did see that it was a PPP loan. I did see that, after researching that these are forgivable loans, and I thought, okay, well, if I can get some of the money forgiven, great. I just looked at it as like an opportunity, like a free roll on my business to inject some money into it and help get things going.
And there was somebody else that would kind of filled in the information,
Yeah.
right? And the mistake you made was not paying attention to the detail.
My
right?
mistake was trusting other people to do this for me, and just instead of just applying for a loan on the up and up.
Because you ended up getting how much did you get?
I
on
got
this one?
$408,000.
And how much do you know how much you would have gotten if you did it the right way? How many employees did you have?
It was just me.
Okay, so it would have been just
So it
you.
would have been like $20,000 or something like that.
Right.
So which still would have helped me
course.
tremendously, and I should have just did that. But there's a part of you that you look at something, you're like, you go along with it, you greed, and that's what happened. I mean, I didn't know what they were doing, but I knew. I knew that what they were doing, something had been done or was being done to enhance the loan and get it approved.
You just decided not to ask any questions. And
I asked her, I said, who's the guy? I did ask her who the guy was, and she said, oh, it's my people, this, that. And she made it seem like he worked for Blue Vine. That was the fintech company, yeah.
did you have to pay a kickback to them to get the loan?
So that was the thing. So she tells me, I said, hey, what do you need out of this? Because she owed me money. She owed me like 15 grand. Was it 15 or 10? She owed me 10 grand at that time because she had paid me back slowly and I remember she told me 25.
25 grand?
So that's what I thought, 25 grand. So the loan comes and she sends me wire instructions for some company that I've never seen the company name before. I don't know who owns it. And the amount's $102,000. And I'm like, whoa.
That's what she wanted?
They wanted 25%.
Wow. Okay.
So that was kind of, I had a disagreement with them. I got on the phone. I'm like, yo, you didn't 25%? I'm like, why would I said, what if I have to pay this back? Like I'm going to be in the hole 100 grand off the bat. Like, come on. And I said, look, let me work on it. Let me see. And I said, hey, they'll take cash though, right? Because I wasn't going to wire money from this account to a business that I don't know what business it is, who owns it, what they're involved with. I was just like I started getting really, the red flags are there and I'm just ignoring them like an idiot.
Right.
And so I think that day was like they were aggressive because it was that morning that I got the money that they were like on
top of you.
Yeah. And so I said, look, let me work on it. And then she calls me in the afternoon sometime and she's like, hey, this guy's pissed off, this and this. I said, I'm working on it. This is like, I said, even if you wanted a wire, at that time you had to go into banks and make appointments to go in the bank and do things.
This was all during like
COVID. This was all the shutdown. Yeah. COVID. Yeah. So I just said, give me time. And I was just running through scenarios in my head. And I'm like, I have to slow pay this thing because there's no way I can give them 102 and then tomorrow comes and I have to pay this back. I have to be able to pay it back. And I couldn't risk that liability. So I came up with 15 grand by the end of the day.
To give them?
In cash, yeah. And I said, look, here's 15. And I told her, I said, look, you owed me 10 and you told me 25. This is 15. And that was like a personal conversation. And she said, no, this guy, he's not going to go away. So then she got on the phone. She did a 3-way call with me and the guy. Never met the guy a day in my life. And he told me, he made it seem like everything was legit too. He sits there and he says to me, you're not doing anything illegal. And I said, what? I'm like, paying you 25% of this loan I just got is not illegal? Like, so I said, look, man, I said, I don't know you. That's what he told me. I said, just give me time and I'll get you. I don't know. He says, I don't know you. And I said, well, I don't know you. And I'm not going to wire you or your company 102 grand.
And initially when the negotiation, when they said 25, were they specific on 25,000 or was it vague? So then she's like, no, I meant 25%.
No, she's like, no, it was 25%. And I'm like, that's a lot of money.
Right.
And then but in that conversation with the guy, I was just, and then at the end of it, I remember him telling me, well, I'm going to have to cancel your loan. I said, well, you do what you got to do. And because I already knew that he was backed in a corner because I'm like, he didn't do this on the up and up. Like, he didn't do this
right
straight. So, at that point, I kind of was like, hey, do whatever you want. And the money sat.
Was the money used for like lavish type stuff? Or was
No, where I messed up was, so I started trying to figure out how I can get money out in cash, and I kind of created a fake payroll. And I created a fake payroll. And so that's what the government kind of came down on because according to my PSR, somebody made an anonymous tip, which I guess was these people because I did finish paying them, saying that I was doing this and that and that I was using it for jewelry, which I didn't. I've had my chain for 20 years. I'm not a flashy guy. They made an anonymous tip to the bank, and then the bank put in an indemnification letter to send it to my bank. My bank froze my accounts, all of them, personal, business.
Were they all with the same institution?
Yeah, they just froze me across. I had Chase for over 12 years, I think, since they were Washington Mutual, and they just blink of an eye just froze me. And so what I did is I was calling them. They had Chase had a notice on there that said to call the like the Celtic Bank, which was the lender, and a name. And so I called and I said, hey, listen, what's going on, this and that. And the guy said, look, I have to pull your paperwork and see and whatever. And I said, well, is there an issue? And he said, yeah, there's an issue. And I said, okay, let's work on resolving it. I said, what can I do? He says, did you spend the money? I said, I spent like probably 70,000 of it. And I said, the rest is in the accounts. You can have it, you know? So he says, well, they're not sending it back to me. And I said, well, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ask them to return the money to you. And I'm going to work on getting you a payment for the money that I did spend.
Right.
And that was just the only resolution I saw at that point. I knew that this was not going to work out in my favor. I knew that this was what needed to be done. I knew that I needed to pay them back the money.
Right.
And this was what I was afraid of when they wanted the kickback, was like, hey,
if something goes south and you're on the hook for it. Yeah.
So that was like the end of June when those phone calls, and I just kept in contact with the lender. I would call. He's a BSA officer for that bank, and I just kept calling the guy. Hey, listen, I got Chase to do this. I sent them a letter asking them to return it, and then I went and got a cashier's check for $68,000, the exact amount to make the loan whole, and I FedExed it to them on July 3rd, and called the guy. Hey, did you get it? Yeah, I got it. Thank you, and
And at this point, so you had basically made the loan whole. They got the money.
Yeah, Chase ends up sending the money back in the middle of the month sometime.
Okay.
But they only sent a portion.
Okay.
They left like 30-something thousand in my account because my business was making money.
They might have been afraid of like chargebacks or something.
No,
like that.
it was because that was the amount that I had made. So, like in the months of May and June, so they separated that money and then gave them the difference. But they didn't give me back that money. Chase kept it. So then in August, when I found out that they had, because I couldn't check my online account.
Right.
I couldn't see the balance. So when I got the statement in the mail, I saw what the amounts they took out. I knew that there was still a balance with Celtic. So I contacted Celtic in August and I said, hey, what's the balance? And the guy said, look, it's this amount. It's like $35,000. That's including the 1% interest for daily. And I said, I want to wire the money. And I wired him the $35,000. I left myself with nothing. I had zero. But I just wanted I wanted to make them whole. Like it was my responsibility to do that. It was, even if it put me in a hole,
right.
It was my responsibility to handle that. And that's what I did. And I felt good about doing it. I didn't have a doubt in my mind that it was the right thing to do.
And I'm sure you knew if at least theoretically thinking, if you hadn't done that, there was probably a shitstorm, which still came. Mm-hmm. But did you think by doing this, it was kind of like everything was squashed now and you could kind of like restart your life and get back to normal?
I think.
Or did you know that like there was going to be an investigation and at some point feds would get involved?
I mean, look, I have an uncle who's a former assistant U.S. attorney, so I knew kind of how feds work. My father was in trouble 20 years ago with the feds. So I had an idea of how they operate, and I knew I was going to get a visit. I felt I was like, they're going to come knocking. And I just wanted to have my ducks in a row. I wanted to make sure that I was doing stuff in good faith from here forward. Even if I had made mistakes and even if I had done wrong, I wanted to mitigate. I started mitigating at that point. I wanted to, hey, look, you can get me, but you're not going to say I stole.
Right.
So
from the time that you made the repayment back to them, when it was all financially satisfied, when did you get your first notice that there was a federal investigation going on, and how did you find out?
I found out that this girl was charged.
The girl that
she was charged
originally owed you money, and this was her plan to how she could pay you back.
Yeah, her and a few individuals have been charged by information.
How'd you find that out?
I can't even remember, man.
Just
I think
through
someone might have sent me the link, or maybe I saw it on the internet or something, and then I saw that the other guy, the guy who's the ringleader,
right,
that he had been charged back in June. I noticed these things, and so I started realizing, hey, so what I did was I hired an attorney. I got a defense attorney, and I said, look, he said, what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to reach out to them and let them know you represent me. That way, I'm not hiding. Like I wanted to face whatever was coming as right away. I had no intention of hiding, running from it. I just wanted resolution, you know? And so he did. He reached out to them, and they let him know that I was a subject of an investigation, not a target yet. And then eventually they said, look, you know, he's a target, because I was a borrower. They targeted a handful of borrowers, and some of those, one of them I knew, and they charged that girl as well.
Right. Has anybody been sentenced to time yet?
Yeah.
From most to least, what type of sentences have you seen?
On these on the borrowers?
Mm-hmm.
On the borrowers, I saw somebody get home confinement. Their money was frozen from the get-go, so I don't think they ever touched it. I saw a woman get 6 months prison and then 12 months home confinement. These were all people with the same plea agreement as me.
Okay.
And then I saw somebody with 12 months and a day. And then I saw another, the girl I know got 15 months.
Okay. Yeah. The girl, but
not the one who did the loan, just a borrower that
the one that did the loan. Did she?
She took it to trial.
Oh, and
so what she did was, and I found this out in the discovery, was she voluntarily gave the feds her phones, and the feds got all the communications from WhatsApp, from text messages, everything. She sat down for 2 interviews with them and gave them information on everybody she got a loan for,
right,
and others, telling them stuff that wasn't even true,
right.
And then she ended up not taking a deal and taking it to trial, and she was found guilty on, like, I don't know, 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 of her counts. I don't know. And she got 44 months.
Okay. So she went to trial and got 44 months. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
she ended up getting indicted because she didn't waive her, you know, so
right.
they ended up going through
her
that.
Her plea deal probably wasn't as good as everybody else, because her involvement was
She played her.
She was reeling people in.
Yeah,
she probably had a managerial role on there, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So, and now the people that are watching right now, because man, this is like, it was just on. I was trying to find the link, but the other night on they were talking about PPP fraud, on how it's just the feds, the amount of cases that they have to go work on, they haven't even hit like 1% of them yet.
I agree.
And there's people out there that are watching this right now that are hearing all the chatter about, and they're like, fuck, you know.
Yeah, they extended the statute of limitations.
Oh, yeah.
From 2 to 10 years or something. So that means they're just going to keep digging and digging. You know, the thing about it was, like, I mean, I've seen people out there buying Lamborghinis and stuff, and they're riding around free. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to get everybody.
Right.
But I just feel like you have to, like, I don't know. I don't even want to say it. We'll save it for another time.
Save it for part 2.
Yeah. But going back to it, it was so I had my lawyer reach out to them and let them know he represented me. I felt that was the best way.
Clearly, again, people that are watching this right now that are afraid of what might come. Obviously, you can roll the dice and hope nothing ever comes your way. But in a situation like yours, things would probably be a lot worse if you hadn't taken the steps that you did take, because you kind of got started on your doing everything from mitigating your circumstances early on, from paying back as much. Well, you paid back all of it. But even if individuals are out there going, man, I got $200,000, there's no way I can pay that back. My advice is do what you can. Make attempts, make good faith, get yourself involved, because if not, when they do come knocking, now anything you do doesn't look like you did it for the right reasons. It just looks like you did it because you got caught.
Yeah.
When did you start? So this happened when you had the loan paid back in what year?
August 2020.
20. And all the way out to 2022, this thing drug out. Yeah. Right. What kind of how have the nights been? Sleepless, anxiety?
Those were tough years, because I was paranoid, and I never once thought it went away. Everybody, like, people would be like, "Oh, you're fine," you're fine. Like, this girl, the one I knew, she had got charged in March of 2021. She told me, "You're fine. You paid it back. You're fine." Everybody thought I was fine, and nah. And I knew it. I just knew I was going to have to answer for it. Yeah. I just knew.
I imagine, unless the Fed send you a letter saying you are no longer,
they're not doing
you're free to sleep. And so you reached out. What made you reach out to me? What happened? What catalyst took place that you were like, all right, I need some additional help here?
Yeah. So two people, the girl that took it to trial and another one, they both got sentenced in February of 2022. And that month, I just had this feeling, man. I just had it, man. And sure enough, man, I hadn't talked to my lawyer in probably a year and a half since I paid him the retainer. And he emails me out of nowhere, hey, prosecutor, see below, prosecutor wants to speak to me. And I said, I just knew, man. I just knew. And I knew it wasn't going to be good. He says, I'll let you know when I talk to her. And I just knew. I was like, I'm done. And he calls me the following week when they had, because I mean, this is an email. Hey, I need to talk to you, and they don't talk till the next week. So that is like the longest week of your life.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there.
Kind of part of the game, though. I think, right?
What I did was I got ahead of it because what I did was I went to my wife. My wife knew I was under investigation from 2020, and I had told her. And then my father knew as well. So I just went to them and told them, look, the prosecutor, and they're likely, I haven't talked yet, but this isn't going to be good. And the next week came, he calls me, says, hey, Joe, I don't have any good news for you. And I was like, thanks, man. And this is how he is. The guy's like
every sentence you want to hear from your criminal defense
every
attorney.
Time
Joseph, I'm glad to see
listen,
you. I have no good news to give you today.
Every time I saw his name in my inbox, every time I saw his number pop up on my phone, it would like ruin my day. Yeah. And I would just like, and he was so negative. Like he just not even like, well, you paid it back. That's the good. No. He was just like, no, you're. It's not good for you. It's not good. Everything, everything was like that.
Would you rather him have sugarcoated it?
No, not in hindsight. No.
Right.
And that's one thing that I'm going to thank him for, because by him being such a pessimistic person, it
set your expectations.
It set my expectations, and it made me be real with myself. You know what I mean? It made me like, it humbled me and brought me down to, to my core, and realized, and I started looking at life differently. And then, I started evaluating so after I speak to him and he says, look, I don't have nothing good news to say. They wanted to charge me with other things. And I said, listen, I'm not trying to do any of this. I said, this has been hanging over my head long enough. I will face it, get me a plea agreement, and I'll turn myself in. Let me know the time frames for things so I can have, things in order. And I said, I want to face it head on. I didn't want to put you take it to trial, you're dragging your family through trial.
Yep.
You take it to trial, you're dragging, your finances are going to be destroyed by dragging this out. I wanted the shortest time frame for everything. You know what I mean? If you're
plus you knew you fucked up.
Yeah.
You didn't, your idea wasn't to go out and commit crimes, but
Right.
when it presented itself in desperation and turning blind eyes, at the end of the day, going back, I guess basically is, if you could do it all over again, there's some things you would do drastically different, like not do it.
Not do it at all, for sure. Like
when I meant to ask you earlier, when did you learn in this process that you could have done this yourself? Because she did it for you and inflated numbers, and then there's another party involved, and as we all know, PPP loans, like I got two of them. I got round one and round two, and I got an SBA disaster relief loan. It was a half-page application you do on your bank's website. When did you know you could have done that on your own?
I think after I got it,
okay,
and I kind of was just like, sour on the loan with them because I saw all the red flags and I saw the negativity, and it didn't feel good. And I like my biggest thing is I was just selfish in that time, and I didn't think even though I can say I'm not a flashy guy. I didn't do it so I could buy myself stuff, and I did it so I could provide. I wanted to have money and be comfortable. I was selfish because not one time in that process did I think about my kids.
Right.
Not one time did I think about my parents who've already been through, who already went through this 20 years ago.
Right.
I did. My sisters. Nothing. Nobody.
Your dad went
my
to
wife.
prison.
Yeah. No, my father didn't go to prison. He ended up getting home confinement.
Okay.
But still, he went through this.
Wasn't it something similar?
It was I think he pled guilty to conspiracy to commit mail fraud.
Okay, but it was a fraud case.
It was a it was
Okay.
a fraud case. Yeah,
So you saw him go
Quite
through it. You saw all the.
Yeah.
How old were you?
21.
21. So you were old enough to know.
Yeah.
And then seeing yourself go through it, you're like, holy shit.
Oh, I thought my father was perfect. My whole life. You know, I grew up like thinking like he knew every answer to every question. So I remember getting to an age where it was like I'd ask him something and he'd be like, I don't know. And I'd be like, you know everything. How do you not know? And then so when he was successful. So when this happened to him, he was my hero.
Right.
I thought he was perfect. And so it made me question everything. Like, who is he? Is this, and I didn't realize, people make mistakes, man.
Did he take responsibility?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He did. And he told me, like, I would make excuses. I'd be like, man, you were just doing this. And he'd be like, I made a mistake, man.
Is he around now?
Yeah.
When he saw you go through this, was it like, was he dumbfounded? Was he like,
I listen, between leaning on you and leaning on him, I think, that's what got me this far, because I thought he was going to, like, disown me, and he embraced me. He, like,
Right. Oh.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
This brings out a lot of emotions going. This is what people don't understand
Yeah.
is people that are indicted, not even for just this, for anything. You've got people that have been to prison and been to jail, and they try to tell you, oh, man, the minute I got arrested, I was in county jail from the minute I started. You're so lucky that you're out on pretrial.
Yeah.
But as much as luck is it's nice to be out, at the same time, you're living in this world where you feel like you're going about your day doing everything free, but then at the end of the day, you have the
reality.
The reality of going, fuck. Like, I'm living in this kind of purgatory fake world.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it's you can be surrounded by your family, your kids. It could be at a birthday party. You could be having fun, but that reality, it's lonely. It's dark and it's lonely, and you don't feel like there's anyone else who relates, who can understand. And that's one of the things he said to me. I was going through these feelings, and he said to me, hey, I remember that feeling. And he kind of he said, look, it's lonely. I remember feeling like I was by myself, even though I had you guys. And it was like describing, kind of what I was going through. I said, man, yeah. And that, there would be times I'd call you up and just be like, hey, because I just needed to hear it from somebody else, like, that had been through it.
I remember when we first met, what was it? Was it March?
It was March.
March. We went and met in Delray. I forgot the restaurant we went to. And you were so, like, you couldn't even eat.
I didn't eat nothing.
I ordered food.
I wasn't eating at that time at all. Like, I wasn't eating anything.
Right. Yeah, you were like pale. You looked ghostly. You looked overdone, just exhausted. And I was like, I remember what this feels like. It's like the butterflies just spin constantly. Yeah. And I felt like an asshole because I'm sitting here eating food, and you're like sipping on a water. I'm like, can I get him a lemon or something for his water, please? Yeah. But and that's kind of what we started working on. And so take people a little bit through, because people still sometimes are like, what exactly is a prison consultant going to do for somebody? Say, like, how do they survive in prison? Kind of take people through the process, how it was for you, and what value you found from this, and how it's helped you to get to the point where you are today.
Yeah. So I think you have this misconception that the people do when you hire an attorney, that they know everything, that they know the prison system, that they know about programs, they know about all these little details, what you're going to go, what you're, everything, turning yourself in, what that's going to be like. And they don't know. They have never made this mistake. So they can't tell you. And they have their own misconception of what they think. So once I talked to you, I think the first time we talked on the phone, it was like an hour. Like, it was a consultation, but you just gave me a whole hour and I just knew I was going to hire you, man. I had made that decision. It was a matter of the money, coming up with the money and paying you. And I did that before I was even charged. I just knew I needed you, and I needed to know the answers. I'm like a control freak. So you get into this helpless situation where you can't control things.
Right.
So you need to at least have your expectations in order. You need to mentally prepare yourself. And so I started by talking to you, like, whether I was going to surrender or whether I was going in for a change of plea. By talking to you right before that, it helped me, just worry about that moment.
Right.
break it up. So like,
You were focusing on the things that were in your control.
right, for that moment.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of how, like,
Because we went over, I think we went back and forth on your narrative a few times before we had
I
it.
did. I put a lot into it because
You did.
I didn't want. Yeah, the first time I wrote it, I mean, the first time we had it there, and I kind of, the way I had gone through it, I was glossing over everything.
Right.
And I went back and I read it, and I'm like, I'm avoiding these nasty details.
The accountability of what you did.
Yeah.
At the crime.
And I was like, this is not, I can't just gloss over that. Like, I need to own every bit of this.
I remember there were things that you wanted to we were almost like, no, it's too much. You know.
Well, I was pulling back. What was happening is, as I was going through the process, so like even after my change of plea, I went back and added something. And I kept pulling back layers of my life and putting it in there because I just needed the judge. If I'm going to prison, the judge is going to know who he's sentencing.
Right.
It's not going to be another criminal in his courtroom that he's saying, this guy did what an asshole, and he's going away. He's going to know, okay, this is who this person is, and he needs to do that. He can come up with the appropriate sentence for me. That's how I just felt that he needed to hear from me who I am, and I need to put it out on the table.
Yeah.
Right or wrong.
And that's really the process because, again, as much as we're involved in crafting the narrative, like for those people that are watching that don't know, we have a questionnaire that you fill out, right? You fill out the questionnaire, and based on how you answer those questions, it comes back to us, and we draft the narrative. But in no time do we want the story to be our story.
No.
And that was the cool thing that you did is once we created kind of an outline skeleton of what a narrative should be, you then started, when you saw that, you're like, oh, and you started plugging in the missing pieces that kind of fulfilled the narrative.
Yeah.
But at every step of the way, it was your narrative. It was your story. The only thing we did was put you on a path of don't blame, show accountability, identify victims. How would you handle this differently? And don't beg for mercy and ask, please give me probation because of my kids and all of these things. You did really well on owning this, and the references that got involved, character reference individuals, it's the same thing. And I wish everybody took as much. I'm not going to say people don't get as involved as you, but you definitely went above and beyond the average defendant on working on their narrative, and your attitude has kind of been the same the entire way. Like you haven't really, like even today, it's kind of like you'd be a great poker player. You just got like this the stone face. Yeah. You showed a little emotion with your dad, which is good, and now you've gotten your plea deal out of the way. You've gotten everything done. And how now your attorney's good at certain things, but how much preparation did your attorney do with narratives, reference letters, PSR preparation? How much preparation did he give you for that?
No, nothing. He didn't even mention that I might want to, because I was asking those things. I'm like, he didn't know I had talked to you, so, and he didn't know I was hiring you at first. And he like I'd ask him like, hey, do I need character reference letters? And he'd be like, oh, you could if you want. Like he was like, do I need what? Oh, maybe. These things weren't important to him. It was all about, like, they have egos. They think it's all of them, and it's really not.
Right.
It's really not. And you need their experience and their insight, on cases they've seen and what they know about judges, and to give you an idea of things. But they can't help you write a narrative. And what's funny is when I gave him my narrative, he was like, and this is the first time he ever said anything positive to me. I swear to God. He was like, wow, this is really well done. I almost don't want to give it because it makes it look like I wrote it for you. And I'm like, Henry, I just said his name. But
Henry, you didn't write it for me.
Dude, there's no way anybody could read that and think you wrote it because there's just too much personal information in there. There's no way you would have been able to write that for me.
That just goes to show you that the narratives that are usually submitted, it's not. And again, you're not referring to how grammatically correct it was. He's referring to the direction, the substance that was in there. And it's not that most defendants are bad writers. It's they think that there's something special about their situation, that the judge is going to see that they're a good person or a family man, and they didn't murder anybody, they didn't rape anybody, they didn't look at pictures of little kids, and they're not going to go to prison because they're a good person. You took the road early on and identified that there was absolutely nothing unique about you as an individual as to why the judge should give you a break, other than creating a reason for the judge to identify that you understand the consequences of your actions, you're taking responsibility for it, and you are paying a price. Prison is used as a form of consequence. And if the judge feels that you have given back and you have been consequenced, a lot of times you do see favor. Now you still yet have to be sentenced,
Right.
and we'll talk to you again after sentencing, and hopefully it's
If you see me.
If I see you, I think you've got a good you've got a good barometer of what to expect from prior defendants, and they're all under the same judge, right? The ones
No, actually, I think only one of the cases I mentioned to you,
Yeah.
only one of them was in front of this judge.
Okay.
Yeah, the other ones were other different.
And the one in front of the judge, what was their
It was 12 months.
12 months, and they were similar to your.
They had the same level, same guidelines as me.
Did they spend the money, not spend the money?
They had full restitution to pay.
Okay, so you got that in your favor. Look, and I want to be real clear. And I think you and I spoke about this before the video.
Yeah.
The calls that I get from people, they're like, "Hey, I paid it all back." Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And I know we were joking earlier about robbing a bank. You once you commit the crime is committed. Paying it back can help with the judge's decision, but it doesn't change your guidelines, right? You still have your guidelines.
Yeah,
Differences-
I'm being the 12 levels they're giving me is because of my loan amount, my
Right.
intended loss.
The intended
So there's
loss.
actual loss and intended loss, and it's the same.
It's the same. And your actual loss is zero, and your intended loss is
It's
$408,000.
Yeah.
And what's the change again?
The what?
The change? 408.
Oh, 232.
232.
Yeah.
You're never going to forget that
I'm gonna
number.
play the
are you?
lotto with some of those numbers or something. I don't know. Yeah,
So
never forget those numbers.
how has it been on your, like, tell us a little bit about, I mean, don't go into detail about your family, but you're married, but tell us, like, what's the
Yes,
dynamic at home?
So I got married in 2019 to my wife. She had 2 children before me. We had a child together, and then when she got pregnant with my daughter, and so at that point we got married. That was in August of 2019, right before all of this.
Right.
So we haven't been married that long. So
This poor woman.
and then another little thing we had right when we got married, we had just bought our house together in Coral Springs, and same month, like one of her friends is like buying a commercial property, her pastor and friend, right, trusted friend, and they needed like $50,000 to close on the property because the roof needed to be done, the lender had a contingency in there, so they come to me and I'm like, cool, we'll buy out part of the company, and we'll invest the money, and in a year we'll sell the property and we'll split the money. So we invested like pretty much our savings because we had already put money into buying the house. So now we were taking our last and kind of saving this deal. 6 months later, the lady quit claims the property from us, steals it all.
Wow.
So we have to file a lawsuit. That was February 2020. We filed a lawsuit against them. March, my daughter's born. COVID happens. I'm trying for those legal fees. Like I just settled the case 3 years later. You think when people do you wrong, you think, oh, I just sue them. I'll sue you.
Right.
Like that's expensive. Like
And it's a process.
and it's a process.
It's not overnight.
Yeah, so 3 years, it took. But that just shows you how my life was great in August of 2019. I had my first child was 2 at that time. He wasn't even 2. He was 1.5. I was expecting my second child. We were buying our home together. Hey, I have money to invest in a property. Things are great. And then just like that, one decision now puts you in a compromising position, and now you start your judgment starts shifting a bit, and now you do something stupid, and that's what happened with me.
So you have how many kids?
I got 2 of my own, and then 2 stepchildren.
And they're all under the same roof?
Yeah, they all live
So
with
she's
us.
got custody of hers, and
Yeah.
how has this affected her? With has she been in the loop the entire process?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay. What is her expectation right now? I mean, obviously everybody's hoping for,
Everybody's hoping for the
probation
best, and
and home confinement.
Yeah.
What is she prepared if you are given
I've tried to give that reality to her many times, and she's like, I feel like you're going to be okay. I feel like, and I'm like, you need to be, she's like, stop talking like that. I'm like, you need to be, because
just in case.
Well, I mean, I just think there's a strong likelihood, man.
Right.
I'll tell you like this: if the judge turns around and says, "Hey, you're getting this amount of time," I'm not going to be surprised because I did something wrong.
Right.
So I have to be willing to accept that and deal with it. It's, for a long time I thought about this and I said, I can't wait to put this behind me. I can't wait to get past this and forget about it. I'm never going to forget about this. I've changed that part of me has changed because I'm like, I'm never going to forget about this.
Right.
The good and the bad that comes with it. I'm going to be reminded that I'm a convicted felon for the rest of my life. It might be from a loan application. It might be from a job application. It might be something like that. But I'm going to be reminded of that. And then at the same thing, though, it refined my character. I know that this has made me a better man. And this has made me a better father and a better husband, better son. So, I'm going to take the good with the bad.
So you are seeing some positive things that have
for sure,
come
man.
from
For sure,
this horrible situation.
For sure, man. Yeah. I feel terrible about what I've put my family through. I mean, I think about it and, I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself.
Right.
But I think that, with my wife, she's younger than me, and she's, I don't want to get too much into her details, but
Right.
Her upbringing and stuff wasn't what mine was, and she deserves better.
How is she close to her family?
No, not really.
Okay. Does her family know what's going on, or?
Yeah.
Has
Most of them.
Has there been any word from that, or are they?
Yeah, I actually, like her uncle is a good man, and I told him about it, and he just told me, "Don't worry." I told him, "Look, I need you. If I go away,
Right.
I need you to take the boys, pick them up." I talked to him about stuff, and he's supportive. He's a good dude.
And your oldest child right now is how old?
My stepson is 11.
Does he know?
He has an idea. He's heard us talk. We've had a lot of arguments,
Right.
because.
That creates a lot of turmoil, man.
Yeah, man. And our, the thing is, like I said, we got married in 2019. So this civil lawsuit really put our marriage on strained our marriage because those were her friends and right. But then this just compounded that, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like my stupidity just put us in this position where we're like financially not doing well. And so that just adds more, finances are like one of the biggest issues in marriage.
Yeah.
So
especially when you came from doing kind of like really good to getting slaughtered through COVID and then getting hit with this. And what is it that you do right now?
Right now, I work in the architecture industry. I do some AutoCAD and 3D rendering. That was the pictures I sent you yesterday.
Yeah, you did pretty good on that.
Yeah, man.
You might have to hire for thumbnails.
Yeah. So those things that's what I do for a living.
You seem pretty ready to get this behind you and kind of just move on with the next chapter of getting into the probation. Even if there's prison time, obviously probation follows that.
Yeah.
But I think the next thing we're probably going to work right because I know you're talking with your attorney and making the final decision on whether or not you should give a speech at sentencing, which is called a sentencing allocution.
Yeah.
And that's something we're gonna, we would like to work with you on, obviously. As it gets closer, or how are you sleeping at night right now? Is it?
I'm sleeping good now. I I'm in the last 6 months. It's like from where I was in February to now, it's different. I got a positive mindset and I'm mentally prepared. All these steps, like I said, the change of plea, the self-surrender, like I mentally prepared myself. Like when I self-surrendered like on a Monday, I spent the weekend like in my home office, like just ready, mentally preparing myself for what to expect. And one of the things I told myself for that, I was like, because you don't know what to expect and you don't know how you're going to be treated. I just said, look, no matter what, I'm going to be respectful to whoever, U.S. Marshal, agent, federal agent, whoever it is.
They've all got jobs to do.
Exactly. And that's how, and I can't sit there and like those people are just doing their job.
Right.
They
Whether they like and enjoy or they're just doing their jobs, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you opened the door and invited them into your life. It's not
and
the other way around.
that's how like when I remember that day that I self-surrendered, I was standing outside the federal courthouse waiting for my lawyer, and and I see two agents walk by me, and nobody's there. It's like a ghost town. It's like 8 a.m. Two guys, and I'm like, it was a guy and a girl, and I just knew they were. I was like, they're for me. We walk in the door, and they're waiting behind the metal detectors, and I was like, they're gonna. And I said, okay, they're gonna cuff me right here, and then surprisingly they didn't. I thought they were. They were waiting like literally right.
Right.
It took me upstairs. He goes, look, I'm not gonna cuff you. You self-surrendered. I need to get some information and DNA from you. And from there, we're going to hand you over to the U.S. Marshals, and they're going to cuff you.
That was your bond.
That was the day I bonded out that day. And
Did you have to put up a bond, or was it a signature bond?
It's a personal surety bond, yeah.
Okay. So they against property, or?
My wife and I both signed. It was $50,000 a piece. Yeah. Yeah, so it was 100 in total, and then I think hers was 50, mine was 50.
So no assets were handed over at the time, just signatures on assets.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Which is a fear a lot of people have. I don't know if I can afford bond. Most defendants that are nonviolent, that are self-surrendering, they're usually given pretty favorable situations because it's.
My attorney pre-negotiated the bond.
Okay.
So they agreed with prosecution on a personal surety bond. If I had just gone in, it probably would have been 10,000 or whatever, or 100,000. It would have been. I would have had to put up 10,000.
What would you say the biggest benefit of bringing a consultant on to work with this, so other people can understand, like, because it's not cheap to hire a consultant. You're going to spend several more $1,000s to use something like us. Yeah. What value does it bring to the table that hits kind of like the top three?
But just to like defend the fee, like, I mean, people don't realize this. Like, they think, oh, another expense. If that saves you a month or two of time, and that's what you make in that month, then it's paid for itself, and you're free. So you have to put it in like perspective. People don't do that. They just be cheap about everything, and you get what you pay for. So for me, what helped was, like I said, it helped me mentally prepare, because I was able to lean on you and ask you things and feel you out on how you felt or what you knew. And, again, if I would have written the letter from scratch, it probably would have been a lot of begging or something in there, or, there would have been stuff in there that probably I shouldn't have. It helped. Everything kept me, and I will say that, you hire a consultant, some people are going to try to hire you, and this has probably happened to you, where they think you're just going to do everything for them.
Right.
And that is not how it works. Like, you can't expect somebody, they're not you. They're not facing prison time. Like, They can't do that. So you have to take it on and say, this person's going to be a friend to me during this time, and they're going to guide me through this process. And that is, you can't put a dollar amount on that. For me, you can't. You know what I mean? So, but every step of the way, man, I think every single thing I had a question, I would write you or Shelly, and I would say, hey, I have a question about this, and then you guys would find out for me. And that's stuff that my lawyer either would have never responded to my email on, because that's what he would do. I'd ask him stuff, and he'd just ignore it. Or, wouldn't have the correct answer.
Right.
I asked an attorney one time about the programming. This was, I think it was before I even hired you. And they said, oh, you'll figure that out when you get in there.
Oh, like RDAP and things like that? Yeah.
And I was like, that can't be right, because I had already been doing my research, and I was like, not every place has RDAP.
Right.
So I kind of did my homework.
Well, good, man. And that's why we do this. Obviously we do it for business to make money like everybody else, but seeing somebody that is, I hate to use the word thriving through this time, but the alternative is, it still sucks, but you're dealing with it. You're breaking down the anxiety. You're managing your anxiety. You kind of have a realistic expectation, and you have a worst case scenario that you're willing to accept. Obviously, we're hoping everything pops out the way we'd like, but I think you're about as prepared as anybody that we've ever worked with could be prepared. I don't see you getting sentenced to a period of time and going on the run or jumping off a bridge. Like, if you get a super, and the downside, we spoke about this earlier, if you get like some ridiculously short sentence, you're going to go probably like Miami FCI or FDC over there, somewhere that's more of like a detention center.
FDC's that's because you're in a cell there.
Yep.
So I won't be a camp.
Right.
But
I mean, now we have seen some clients with short sentences get designated and go to a camp, but it's very, like we had another client freaking out. He's like, I'm going to the FTC. It was in Brooklyn or whatever, which is a really bad one. But on the upside, even if you get, let's say you got a 6-month sentence, you could still get halfway house. It's not like you're not going to get good time because anything under a year, you don't get any good time.
But they're still going to send you to the detention center first, right?
Yeah, but you might, if you get 6 months, you might be there 2 months. They do give more halfway house typically to detention centers, just because there's less programming and high turnover. You're no risk to them. They have people there that are there because they can't be out on pretrial. They kick to the curb quicker than most people.
Yeah, I'm
You're ready.
Listen, I'm ready. I now it's hard when I think about my kids,
right?
Because they're gonna ask for me every night, every day, and that's the hardest part. But as far as like everyone's, I'm worried about this. How are you gonna? You're gonna be this. You're gonna. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about everybody else outside because they're doing the time too.
That's the real prison sentence. Everybody else right here with you.
Yeah.
And hopefully your wife, as we get closer, I would love to have a conversation with her, just to let her know if something does happen, she doesn't have to handle that. That's part of what you have with us.
Yeah, you might have to, because she doesn't believe I was coming here today. She was like, "What? What's his name?" I'm like,
"Let me Google the address."
I've lost all credibility, so it's like,
we're going to fill out more PPP loan applications. I know it.
Yeah, it's
no, man, and this will be good for her to see, because she'll probably get the like you said, when you try to bring it up to her, it kind of gets like she doesn't want to hear about that reality of it. Yeah. This will be a reality that she sees where you are with it. But Camille, if you are watching, I promise you that he is more prepared than most people for this, and you guys will get through this. Yeah. I want to thank you for coming on today, man. I know this is a big situation, a big deal, and in the totality of things, it's a blip on the radar. There will be another day where you're sitting at this table, and it's all going to be in your past, and you'll be looking forward to the future. That's all you got to it. So thank you for coming on. We would like to talk to you after sentencing, see how that goes, see how you feel, see what you're looking at, and then I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much, brother.
All right, man.